item is just a reminder for everybody that this meeting is being recorded. As are all our meetings moving forward. So, if you'll join me for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we can move on to agenda and review. Agenda review and adoption.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Scott? Have a second?
I second.
Ready? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll look at board minutes. I have a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Marty. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Moving on to community input. Do we have any community input? Not. Moving on to item 3, item AWSD talking points. Especially.
Thank you and good evening. The ESC talking points are in your packets. They are focused on the new local service plan that the AWSD board will approve in January and then approve in February. Not a lot of changes there. They are increasing FTE in registered nurses, speech pathology, and a network engineer. They are decreasing FTE in special education coach. And those increases and decreases do reflect how we use the ESD in our district. So, in my opinion, the changes they've made to their plan support their work in our district.
Great. Any discussion?
Appreciate clarity, especially all the services we utilize.
Great. All right, let's move on to reports. Facilities, Travis.
We've been working with the administration to help condense storage items in order to try to create more storage space in each campus. That's been an ongoing situation. Big barn update. The demolition has been finished and we are currently waiting on permits and scheduled. So we're hoping that will start landing here soon. We have rented the rental house here in Weston, and everything is now scheduled for renovations and cleaning up the Athena to try to have it ready by February. Outside of that, we've installed a final plank floor. We've upgraded with some electrical circuits, and we've repaired an exhaust for the concession stand that will be for the high school. First room as you exit the gym on the right hand side. So now it has extra circuits in there to hold all the power that it's needed. We have an exhaust that's up there to help pull air. And then the only thing left is that we've added in the same time power to the back room because we're hoping to move an ice machine closer to where everybody can access it versus it being down in the locker room area. So that's been finished for now, and you should be seeing it within the next home game. So other than that, we've been updating our, I just lost the name, accomplishment wall, maybe you call it, there inside the gym. And we're gonna be placing all of when the schools are separated, we'll be placing those on a banner, putting those on the wall for memorial on that. So we can create some more space for we keep winning. it's a good problem, but we're running out of room, and so we're trying to create more space, and we've accomplished that, but now we just gotta finish it up.
Any questions, comments from Travis?
Thank you.
Thanks for the creativity on the concession stand.
All right, moving on to transportation and IPM, Tom.
Hello, everybody. Let's see here, on my IPM hat, the unseasonably warm weather has made pests an issue, and it's gonna continue to be an issue. Got a couple reports, and I'm fairly working on forced eviction notice for those problems. I even looked over the field today and happened to see dandelions blooming, which is wonderful. On that note, I've started talking with Travis about coordinating our fertilizing and pesticide applications as we head towards the springtime, so we can attack that and work with each other rather than against each other. I've also talked with them about what we currently have in the school district, so we utilize what we have rather than getting stuff we don't need right away. On the transportation side of things, we do have a new bus, showed up on the 29th. It's been registered with the state, it's been insured, I'm waiting for plates to arrive. We've got to do a little this and that, garbage cans and those kinds of things, but I hope to put it in service next week. You'll see on the agenda later on, you guys will be talking about surplusing vehicles. We've got 2 on the list. We've got 2001 International, it's a full-size bus. Legally, we can no longer transport students due to emissions restrictions. So there's no reason to have that on the lot anymore. And then 99, which is a minibus. It's been out of service for a while, and at this point, it's just getting worse. Batteries are dead, and rather than investing money into it, spend to get it off the school, the school list. So, I think that's everything I have for you guys today.
Great, thank you.
The new bus is awesome.
Yeah, we're excited. You know, we're not gonna ride it. Any questions, comments from Tom?
I toured the bus prior, appreciate that. So again, appreciate that effort to get a bus here. And again, as I was saying, I appreciate the new bus smell, and some of the components safety related to it. So thank you.
All right, moving on to preschool and Athena Elementary. Ms. Howard.
With preschool, we are down 1 student. We have an opening as of this week, so we will get that filled because we do have kids on the waiting list. So I'm just waiting to hear from Blue Mountain kids to give me the go ahead for who to enroll. Getting ready for just continuing to work on those school skills and still continuing strong with their garden lessons, and they're planning their next family event with the garden, which should be, I think, next month. Kindergarten through 4th grade. Oh, our winter concert, if you were able to join us, it was standing room only pretty much in the high school gym. It was a real treat for many people in our community that came. The kids did a fantastic job. And we had high school helpers, as we call them, bouncers, helpers. Because we did have a special guest, Santa came and was down in the Commons this year, and they just helped a little bit with crowd control. Very nice young men, a group of them that Mrs. Wortman asked to come, and they did a fantastic job. And I have a great picture. They all got to sit on Santa's lap afterwards. They had Rochambeau for who got to sit on Santa's lap, and then some pictures with Santa. Our kiddos also got to go to the Gem Theater for Polar Express, and that was funded through the Elliott Foundation, and had a lot of fun. They went down in 2 different groups. They enjoyed popcorn and water. Let's see, we had the holiday store, which has pretty much been taken over and sponsored, which is fantastic, by our parent group. They purchased a lot of new items to go in there, so every kiddo got to go through and pick a gift for a family member. We do have a board member's 2 daughters that I love how they negotiate with one another of what they're going to choose. A lot of times I think the gifts are for each other. It's always fun to watch. Our parent group also brought through the Cocoa Cart and had, what's his name? I just lost it. The green guy, the Grinch. Thank you. The Grinch came through with them, gave out cookies. That's always a lot of fun, and they really look forward to that. We had our 4th graders went to the Athena Public Library for a STEM activity with the librarian, and that was a great time. They built some sort of pop-up cards that, Mrs. Partita had for them and had a lot of fun with that. Let's see, next week we have the coffee hour with Mrs. Vecchio joining us. We'll be talking about doing our annual Title I information, and that's on the 21st at 7:45. We are starting our winter iReady diagnostics in reading and math. And we'll be getting those this week and next week for completion before the end of the semester to help teachers as they're completing report cards. We had 4 new students that are starting this week in the elementary. We lost one of a break and we gained 4. So kind of the right way to go, but we are pretty full out. So that's a lot's going on. And this crazy weather, just, I just don't know what to do.
Yeah, they haven't got to build a snowman.
No,
There's like everything.
no. Yeah.
Really, somebody wearing a jacket. Any other questions, comments, Scott? All right, moving on to Weston Middle School initiative.
I'll just say this feels like winter to me and I'm really happy with it. Feels quite normal. I haven't had a normal winter in my mind in a long time. Well, the middle school has been busy. December is always a busy month, and then we're also headed toward the end of the semester. So we're kind of wrapping up a lot of things here in Weston. Our 5th graders were part of the elementary winter music contest or concert, and did an outstanding job. And then the winter band concert, if you had a chance to attend, was outstanding. And our 6th through 8th graders performed really well and had little comedy things built into their performances. But at the end, when we had the bagpipers play and Tim Taylor do his bagpipe solo, it turns out our 6th graders are on fire to learn to play bagpipes. So Mr. Gow is trying to figure out now how to restart the evening bagpipe practices in the upcoming year, because his 6th graders are just dying to want to play the bagpipes. So we had a lot of good press, I think, around the bagpipes, 3D printed bagpipes. And then Mr. Griggs is here tonight. And so I think we're just seeing a lot of enthusiasm around that Scottish history, which is fantastic for the district. Our parent group also ran a holiday store here in the library. They served about 100 students who were able to pick out a gift for a family member. These bicycle helmets are left over from that. We'll get them out to our treasure trunk for kids who might need a bicycle helmet. And the kids can pick for an adult female, adult male, or an older sibling or a younger sibling. And they set up a very nice store and the kids gift wrap and take a gift home. Wrestling has started for middle school. We have 17 middle school wrestlers and are needing to hire an additional coach, which is outstanding and very exciting. And then we have about 26 girls in girls basketball. So our middle schoolers are very involved this winter, which is exactly what we want. The semester ends on January 23rd. We will have our first semester academic awards assembly on Wednesday, February 4th in the evening at 6:30. The 7th and 8th grade drama class, led also by Mr. Gow, will have a performance. And then we'll have an academic outing on Friday, February 6th. Our 7th and 8th grade leadership class has begun its winter camp food drive and will deliver Valentine's Day cookies to seniors, as is their tradition in February. They are also planning a winter dance on Friday, January 30th from 3 to 5 p.m. So it's like another dance. In December, I was very focused on getting into math classes, and our 5th grade students were working on a real world math problem. They had to determine the amount of paint it would take to paint the water tower of Bannister Road. So they were working with surface area, volume, circumference, all sorts of things. And then they had to present their proposal to the mayor. And so when I was in there, they were working in teams, just first to figure out the math and then also incorporating some writing skills into that assignment. It was a lot of fun to observe. And then school-wide, our ELA students will begin our One School, One Book project. They'll start at the end of the month, and this year's book is Rising Water, which you have been gifted a copy if you'd like to read along with us. This is, I always mention we have a nonfiction focus when we do this. This is actually a nonfiction book, narrative nonfiction, and it's about the rescue of the Thai soccer team. And so the kids will read that, and then before spring break, we'll have our culminating event, and we believe we can get in a scuba diving expert to talk to the kids and someone from search and rescue in our area. So we're excited to begin this year's book. Any questions about the notes?
Are all 17 of those wrestlers, is that a new sport for them, or is there overlap from like the boys basketball?
We started last year, so this is girls and boys.
Yeah.
So yes, for boys, if they play basketball, they can now wrestle. For girls, right now, they have to choose. And they also practice at the elementary gym before the high school. Now, that's a lot of kids.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Anything else? All right, moving on to high school. What you got?
Well, starting from before the break, again, the 6th through 12th holiday concert was very well received. I really appreciated that Mr. Gao built in like a gag routine for each group. So it kept the mood light and ended again with the full band, including bagpipes, rendition. And what I will also pitch in there was that the composition was written by Tim Taylor as well. But with that, I did want to invite Mr. Andrew Griggs to share about our recent OPB coverage and the 3D printed bagpipes.
Well, Mr. Gao came to me at the beginning of the year as we were looking at our 3D printing situation and was like, I've seen 3D printed bagpipes, can you do it? And I was, okay, so we ended up needing to replace one of our printers, so we kind of took that into the equation when we were trying to pick a printer, and then we started running some test models through there and fairly quickly came up with a functional set of bagpipes, and then we were able to create a functioning chanter as well. I hand designed that myself in CAD software because we couldn't find one that was a single piece. So we ended up putting those together, and then the ESD came and wanted to do a little spotlight on that when they saw what we were doing, because they have to look through it. We were in the middle of printing part of it at that moment, and then from there, OPB contacted Mr. Gowan. So yeah, it's been some really good press for us, and we've had some good connections out of that. So STEM Affinity out of Boise evidently has an alumni or something like that Mrs. Dennis was talking about. And so we're getting connected with them, and they want to come and help us grow our senior program. So pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And they sound and play like that. I think you were running the numbers and it's like 600 compared to like 2,000 for a new set.
When we printed the chanter, we were able to reduce the cost even further. So yeah, it's probably closer to $450, $500 in parts and filament. So yeah, we're pretty excited to make it
Looking at,
affordable and
yeah,
feasible to actually get bagpipes in the hands of younger students. And if something breaks, it's fairly inexpensive to actually replace those parts and print new ones. So definitely affordable adventure.
that's cool. That's cool. And then past that, again, thinking before break, we had a full week of festive dress ups, assemblies, and activities for those with passing grades. And I even decided to not be a Grinch, and I let everyone have a long lunch that week. It also helped with pixie lunch, so it served a dual purpose. And then we hosted 4 days of academic support over the break, so the Monday and Tuesday of each week, and we had 8 students attend at least one session of that. As Ms. Vecchio said, the end of the semester is the 23rd, which is where we'll see how this quarter grading average is really going to play out. And then our senior FAFSA night is tomorrow, and we've also shared out Oregon Student Aid is now hosting webinars that families and students can sign up for. So really just trying to offer more support and connection around financial aid and scholarships and what's at the state. On the extracurricular front, also jumping off of wrestling here, we'll be hosting our first home duel for both the high school and the middle school. And that'll be at the end of this month. We were able to purchase a competition mat with the grant that we received from OSAA last spring. And so that's really made it a feasible option for both of our programs to have a lot of students out. We have 12 out at high school. Our Hall of Fame induction ceremony is on January 23rd, and then the pipes and band, drums halftime show will be on January 29th. And then on the horizon, we have Snow Club kicking off in February, and National Honor Society individual projects are underway as well.
Any questions?
Thanks for the background detail.
Yeah, that's really great. Very impressed. Great work. All right, let's move on to 4.6, the superintendent report, school board appreciation.
Well, as you probably noticed, January is School Board Appreciation Month. And so you have some notes and cards from the elementary school, your books and some goodies from the middle school and a banner, and then our high school floral design class and foods class has provided some things for you this evening. And before I introduce them, I just want to say again, what an honor it is to work with the school board. Your support, collaboration, thoughts, ideas, interest in the district makes a big difference for our kids and keeps us moving forward. So as a superintendent, I really appreciate your work. And so happy for Appreciation Month. And now I will turn this over to Ms. Thompson and her students who provided some refreshments.
We have our students here with us and they are gonna do all the public speaking tonight.
I'd like to introduce my peers and myself, Alex, Adam, Casey, Camden, and I'm Bennett. I'd like to say thank you for having us tonight. It's our pleasure to cater the board meeting and show off our skills that we have learned in food science. Thank you for supporting our agricultural programs and elective programs that enhance our experiences as students in the Athena-Weston School District. Please enjoy the treats.
If it's all right with the board chair, we could break for a minute and let the board go and get some refreshments from the kids, and then we could continue.
Sure.
That's how you want to do it.
Yeah, we can do that. Thank you very much.
Alex, not a.
There we go.
I would just like to say personally, thank you very much for the awesome flower arrangement. That is gorgeous and delicious food. Thank you for coming in. Do that for us. And there's more back there, so, you know, others please eat it, because I can't. Moving on to 4.6.2 enrollment.
So our current enrollment numbers are in your packet. When we ran these numbers, we were at 480 students. We've been hovering right around there since the beginning of the year. However, I do know that we have literally enrolled 7 students this week across the district. And so we may see that number pop up. Just a reminder though, at the semester, we do take some in and some go out. It's kind of a good transition time for families. So it will be interesting to see what the numbers look like in February.
Question on that, do you get the impression that like the new housing and stuff is bringing families in, or is it?
That is not my impression with the families that we have enrolled right now. Otherwise, I'm not sure the answer on it.
Are they out of district transfers or are they?
Yeah, we have one kind of large family transfer in from another district, and then I think we're getting an out of district transfer and you know, forwards
That's gonna be 8.
to be.
Ah.
We'll let you, it'll show.
We'll take it. Awesome.
Main thing is our number is staying consistent, which is good.
All right, moving on to 4.6.3, community bond advisory committee update.
So we had a work session in December to talk about sort of debrief after the failed bond election in November. And the board sort of identified next steps, and the board asked me to reconvene the CBAC, which is a superintendent's committee, and ask them to also reflect on the election and then sort of decide if they wanted to propose that we put a bond on the ballot in May. And the board gave me the parameters of a short-term bond, looking at probably no less than 6 years in order to continue to maximize our potential with the Awesome Grant, which runs every 6 years. And if possible, no longer than 8 years, because we would be looking at a smaller amount. And to try to keep the amount around the current bond rate, which will draw out the books in June. So that committee met last Monday, the 5th. We had a good turnout from our original CBAC committee. We have several members of that committee here tonight to talk about the decision-making process that they went through, but just as an overview, Cassie Hibbert, who has been working with us for almost a couple of years, had the CBAC sort of debrief the feedback that they had heard about the bond. So we had a little bit of discussion around that. And then they went through a couple of activities, one where she had all of the projects that were in the original proposal, and the members of the committee put dots on the ones that they thought had the most public support. And we sort of looked at that and then had some small group discussions, and then again put dots on the projects they thought were the most important, move the district forward, that really ought to be considered in May. And with that, the CBAC was unanimous that they would like the board to consider putting the CTE building on the ballot in May. We did get the Awesome Grant, and we are eligible for up to $6 million. That said, $6 million in bond would be a good bit more than our current bond rate, but we wanted to have some wiggle room, but we didn't want to apply for the 10 million and reduce the opportunity for other districts, knowing that we would not do something that high. So we have been approved up to $6 million. In your packet is an updated cost estimate on the CTE building that Kathy presented to the CBAC. The cost of that is up from the cost in the original bond proposal, and thought maybe would address particulars around that if you'd like. But essentially, my understanding is that because the CTE building was co-located with the proposed gym, some of those basic systems like ventilation and plumbing and electrical were shared across the two projects. And so if we only build the one building, all of that cost is then incurred in this project. It also includes just some updates and costs that have changed since last summer. And so a 12,000 square foot CTE building, which is what was in the original proposal. So that is the 2 science labs, an ag space, wood space, metal space, and art space. We would need to generate just under $10 million, about $9.95 million. So that estimate is here. And then I would like, if you would like to hear from the members of the CBAC, just a little bit more about the thought process, and then we can look at some of the bond revenue numbers that Piper Sandler has run for us. We have Casey Perkins here, Chad Lunch, and Luke Cancel here to talk. So you all can talk about how we landed on this proposal.
Go ahead and start, Casey. So, a lot of, Ann said that we had kind of a debrief for quite a while, met last week on just feedback from the community that we had kind of heard up to the election and, you know, some of the positives and negatives with that. And it was pretty overwhelming that just the overall expense was a lot to ask for the community. And the focus probably needed to be more on the education component of what the proposal was. One of the things that I think we all kind of agreed on with kind of the numbers that we were playing with as far as the bond rate, the tax rate, and the kind of keeping it to pretty similar to the historic current one that's in place now. It kind of left very few options as far as what potentially could pass in another election. And limited us to kind of that CTE type space. And then the thought being, it still allowed for expansion in the future with addition and add-ons. And, you know, we get 8, 9 years down the road and the opportunity comes up again. It leaves that option open essentially, and still kind of driving some improvements in the district. Casey, you want to add anything? Is that better?
Well, I think that was basically, I mean, it's pretty clear. I think the voters didn't want to spend the money having increased taxes to do like a gym or some of the other things on the list. And so if you're going to keep your tax rate where it's at, you can have a lot of options, and CTE is probably the most clear beneficial option that we have. So it's fairly cut and dry, I think, the process of what we want to do. And then we discussed a little bit more about what we can do differently in promoting that bond. You know, I think we did good and we had lots of meetings, but I think we all know you get the same people and a very small amount of people at those meetings. So we did discuss some things about potentially having Ann and maybe a school board member, you know, Tim or someone who was on the committee as well, do live, or not live, but, you know, videos that you could put on Facebook to address the community's concerns. Because there's a lot of, you know, whether we like it or not, there's a lot of information on Facebook. So maybe we can get, you know, some better information out there. We don't get a lot of people coming to the meetings. So, but yeah, I think it's pretty clear what our options were. I think it's the best one to present to voters.
Another thing that we talked about in the meeting was not understanding what CT is. And so trying to get out that information so that the voters actually know the benefits of a CT building for the kids. So.
Any questions for our CBAC committee members while they're here?
To be clear, reducing this does not, or then precludes us from reconfiguring the district, correct?
Yes, so to reconfigure the district, we would have to have a gym. And the gym that was proposed is probably going to exceed what we can do in a bond close to our current tax rate. And to do that without the CTE building kind of, it's sort of a domino effect. You know, if we don't do the CTE building, then how are we gonna have wood shop and home ec and those things for middle schoolers? So really having both is what would allow us to reconfigure. So I think reconfiguring the district, is probably not an option at this time if our goal is to do a project close to the current bond rate. However, what the CBAC is proposing to me and what I am then proposing to you with the CTE building, it does accomplish building something unique on the land that we have. It addresses some significant curricular issues for the high school and appropriate space for the high school. When the CBAC toured the high school became their focus very quickly. I don't think anybody would disagree with me on that. You know, there was a lot of talk, just the art room always came up, you know, how do you do art in this art room? There's also absolutely no possibility of expanding our CTE pathways in the space that we currently have at the high school. We've talked a lot about sort of the dream of potentially having a healthcare pathway. We need a new, modern, updated space to do that. We've looked at the science lab at the high school. It is not adequate for our students to be taking chemistry and physics in that science lab. And so the CTE building that was in the original project really does move programming forward for the high school and doesn't take anything off the table at the end of that bond term to consider further expansion and possibly reconfiguration again. So you know, if you even think back to June, one of the proposals was a full rebuild of the high school. This would be phase one. We have the land, we have the space. It would start to put in some of that infrastructure and get that project going, but really increase programming for the high school. So that's where the CBAC landed. They think that that project comes the closest to the current bond rate when you add in the match from the Awesome Grant and moves something forward for the district.
Does it also give the opportunity to bring in the modulars?
We're hoping that there will be some wiggle room to eliminate the modulars once we have that increased classroom space. As Cassie says, demolition is cheap. So we hoping we might be able to, you know, you kind of put a bond proposal out there. Everything you do has to fit within the scope of the bond proposal, but sometimes, you know, you have a pretty accurate cost proposal, but they also consider the fact that it could cost a little more. So you have a little bit of cushion in there. With our last bond, we ended up with some things not costing as much as what we were generating. We were able to accomplish a few secondary projects. So secondary in this could be removing the modulars and doing some minor refreshes on classroom space that is left once those CTE programs move out of the main building. So we could expand, for example, the technology room where we were doing the 3D printing and the drone work because the wood shop would be cleared out. We could teach English in the current art room with some remodeling, etc. The science lab could be made into a regular classroom and go ahead and get the modulars removed. We're hoping there might be wiggle room to do that. So that would be kind of our next step down as possible options.
What questions from?
I think, Mr. Chair, I guess in alignment with that, then especially just be thoughtful about the questioning how bond council phrases the question, just to ensure that we've captured not just career tech, but providing other improvements to support career technical education opportunities or improve student, you know, just making sure the bond council has a good thoughtful approach to how we ask that question to make sure that we capture those other potential improvements. Because I know that, you know, again, portables come out, we would likely want to have some degree of site access for kids walking back and forth. So we're going to have some similar, you know, design. So I do think that supports the removal of those portables, just that we're going to have have to do some brief civil improvements to get kids back and forth because they walk across that fire. So for me, it makes sense. I just want to make sure the bond council captures it in the election. That's my comment.
And I know that Cassie Hibbert is very, but I remember her saying we have to be very careful and clear how we write that bond title, be sure we capture everything.
Any other questions for the members of the CBAC before we start the discussion?
Appreciate their continued support and interest. I'll just, and these projects are built on their volunteer work. So at least from my lens, thank you for your ongoing support and just being willing to come and have conversations about how we can best support students and academic achievement in the future. So thank you for your volunteers.
Absolutely.
So you have some updated numbers from Piper Sandler. And so if you look at the page that kind of shows the summary of structuring scenarios,
It's done. Right?
page 7, if you have the entire packet there. So you can see that we need to generate approximately $5 million to then match with the Austin grant $5 million, which we are guaranteed if we pass a bond in May to meet that just under $10 million price tag on the CTE building. So in order to generate that over a 6-year term, we would need a bond rate of $1.99. I guess I should back up. Our current bond rate is $1.24. It dropped even from when we did the bond title. So the new numbers from November, it dropped to $1.24 because we're at the very last phase of the bond. The average over the 10 years was $1.35, and the bond title, when the bond was passed in 2016, actually said $1.45. So we can work within wording around those numbers. The current bond rate of $1.24, average bond rate of $1.35, or the bond rate that was passed in 2016. We have all of that language to work with. So 6-year term, we would need to have a bond rate of $1.99, which is a bit of an increase over the current bond rate. If you look at a 7-year term, that brings it down to $1.72, which is a 37-cent increase over the average rate over the 10-year term that we currently have. If we wanted to push that out to an 8-year term, we're getting a lot closer. We're quite close to the amount that was passed in 2016, and we are 17 cents over the average bond rate of $1.35 that we have currently. And then if we pushed it out to 9 years, we would basically be at the average rate that we have right now. We would have to push it out to 10 years to be at the absolute current bond rate of $1.20.
Remind me again how often we can apply for the Austin.
Every 6 years. When we had our work session, the thinking in the board at that time was to try to get it closer to 6 years than 10 years. But these are the real numbers at this point and the real cost. The idea in presenting to you tonight would be to allow the board to have some discussion, think about it, and then we would need, the board would need to, I would need to make that recommendation in February and have the board approve it in February, and then we very quickly need to run ourselves down to Pendleton. We have to file the bond title by the end of February. to get on the May ballot. So that will be a quick turnaround in February.
So then for tonight, I guess what we're looking for is, or what I would be looking for is consensus from this group on what the term should be. And if we agree with the project and if we should move forward with putting this on the agenda for approval of question go on the ballot February meeting.
And with that information, I could work with Cassie. I have a meeting with her tomorrow. We could work in the next month on proposed wording for the ballot. So that you would know exactly what we would put out there, when you make that decision.
Chair, if I may, I'm gonna go ahead. I am supportive of the proposed career technical education program. Again, for all the same reasons, improving student outcomes. I think that we, the district, and certainly as a board, a lot of thoughtful discussion about the value of career technical education. So I think this very much aligns with sort of our trajectory and supporting our students and providing them academic opportunities that align with career tech and STEAM and STEM. So I am supportive of the program as well, I'll be honest, I was curious to know what my colleagues would think. I think 6-year gets us pretty close to that $2, and I think that's a challenging number, just rate per thousand. So I would probably lend to fall more in that 8-year term, maybe even 9, but I think 8 to me. That's just my. Also, I guess the question I might ask my peers is, I think what I heard last time wasn't so much, I mean, the cost of it was certainly something, but I also think there were some concerns about the program itself, the proposed bond projects. So I guess the broader question I have is, is the community's hesitation on the last time, was it a whole variety of factors? I think the answer is yes to that. So if we put something forward, is it going to be more focused on, really meeting the program, or is it going to be focused sort of on that, the ask, or is it a combination of both? That makes sense. Be curious to know what my colleagues think.
I guess I too am appreciative of the work, and I think the CTE building was what we heard clear that people supported. I think it's nice to be able to go back to the community and say, thank you. We heard you, everyone was engaged, and as a result, this is what we're coming back to you all as an ask. I would like, I agree, as much as I would like to say the 6-year term, I think that's probably inconsistent with that message. And the 8-year would be better than the 9, but if we're being really true to that we heard you message, maybe we need to stick with 9.
I'm in a similar camp. $1.50 seems like a nice round number, but I remember the $1.44 or whatever it was that we did in 2016, which seemed like a lifetime ago. I think trying to come in as close to that as possible.
And I think just last thing, I think what's hard is understanding that it does vary. Because when we say, it was passed or started at $1.45, but people calculate or realize that, right now it's at $1.24. Right there, they're like, well, we're not, there's inconsistencies there. That's confusing for people. And even at 8 years, the difference between $1.24 and 8-year, that's significant.
I would lean towards 8 years, I would lean towards 6 years, but because I hear what you're saying, I would lean towards 8 years. Because I do think part of what we were communicating is that there are a lot of needs and pretty urgent needs in the district. And 10 years is a long time to push some of those things down the road. So we're saying, okay, we need to spread it out a little bit, but also there is some urgency, and 8 years is maybe a more reasonable time frame.
I agree with the CTE building. I agree with that, the easy one next time. I guess you know, a few things I learned. Number one, I have no idea what people are going to vote for or against. But to kind of this discussion, my experience was that, and I don't mean this to sound condescending, the majority of people are not able to calculate what their cost is going to be. So I don't know that it matters. This is just my take. If it says $1.99 or $1.72, I think it either needs to be, we pick a term that we all like, which would probably be 6 years, or we say it's not going to change at all and not have to have people rely on that per se, or calculating what their cost is going to be to make an informed decision, which case would be 10 years. That's kind of where I fall on the term, right? I mean, that's just, I guess that's just my experience. Yeah. You know, it doesn't really matter if we say it's going up 70 cents per 1,000 assessed, if nobody can calculate what that's going to be for. I don't know if that matters, or if it's 50 cents, like, I don't know if that matters, I think either. Keep it to 10 years, so it's not going up at all, or pick a better term.
Yeah, I think the 9-year allows us to say it's a penny increase. And they don't make those anymore, so we'll have to write a check. And I do agree with you, Paul. I think we were talking about the difference between 6 and 7 years. It doesn't matter because it's going to be a challenging one to communicate. And I think we heard loud and clear that any increase was too much. And I think we should be shooting for either the 9 or the 10. And in my opinion, we should be shooting for the shorter term, if possible.
The 9. And because I think that's straightforward to communicate. And
Same rate per thousand is kind of the, you know, here's what you get for it. You're already paying that.
yep. And
Because I think you could say on $1.36, the same average rate per thousand as the 2016 to 2026.
Yeah.
And be truthful, correct?
yeah, I think that's,
With the 10-year, you can use, as Cassie says, the 3 magic words, no tax increase. The 9-year, you're finessing a little bit more. Anything under that, you are talking about a tax increase. And that triggers a reaction, for sure.
Because if I may, then just talking that through, because I'll just be honest with you. And I totally understand Kristen and I'm supportive. We know that we have a lot of need. I also want to get something that we call, you know, in the sense of, I think, putting something in that field would really, I think, put a flag, if you will, of our support for particularly the secondary program, career tech education at high school. I think does provide, again, like middle schoolers on that same campus, you know, we'd have to be thoughtful about how we can try to get middle schoolers engaged in these programs. But I think does at least give us a pathway, opportunity to try to think about how we get middle schoolers over there and start participating. I guess, go ahead.
If I could just add one thing on need, that Kristen brought up. As a reminder, there are a lot of needs and we have old buildings. But the bond we put on the ballot in November was a 15.25-year bond. So almost double what we're talking about. And we did not have in that bond HVAC or electrical or roofing. You know, when they did the facilities assessment, so remember we had all that done. While I certainly would not want to go 20 years without that in a bond, and when we were even talking about a 20 or 30-year bond, I said then we'd have to start putting like HVAC and some of those things in it. It did not come up in the facility assessment, and of course there can always be a surprise. But there is state funding for a surprise as well. We did not think there was a major infrastructure need over the course of a 15.25-year bond. And so from my perspective, whether it's 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, we're under what we thought the bond term was going to be before without some of those major structure projects. And Scott, who does this all the time, I'd be interested in his opinion on that, but I do just want to remind us all of that.
I guess I would concur with that. And to some extent, if we're gonna have to go in and touch, let's just use the example of this building, if we were gonna do a major grade, I mean, you would likely have to come in and touch the mechanical system, right? You're gonna move walls around, you're gonna do entry systems, right? So as a result of that, you're gonna be coming in and relocating ductwork, potentially upsizing some units. So, there would likely be some mechanical costs, the element, current elementary school or middle school for those grade reconfigurations. So you would have to budget some of that in. So I guess circling back to that, to me, for the some boards, I think almost in line with kind of what Tim and Claude were saying. Go back to that 10-year, maybe just as much as I hate to stretch it out that far, I do think that really does align with, this is the same rate per 1,000 years currently paying. And I do think, to answer your point, if we're gonna circle back, and I do think longer term, at least in my opinion, only my opinion, I do think there's validity in continuing. We know that it makes sense to reconfigure our grades, because again, I'm such a proponent of getting middle schoolers exposure to the programs that the career tech building will offer them. So I do think longer term, that makes the most sense. Maybe setting the district up for as much success, putting the flag in the ground, if you will, a really solid career tech building that has generations of educational opportunities built into it, with the intention of we can also build utility infrastructure and others, so that as we move into that campus area, that we've got some of that utility infrastructure in the ground, we can expand if we need to into that other, the rest of that space.
I agree with that framing, except for one point, and that is that the longer bond term leaves middle schoolers unable to get to that option. And so, what is that? No child in our district currently would get to be in that CTE building when they're in middle school.
Still get to high school.
Yeah, until they get to high school. It'd be the kids being born now in our district that would get to use that facility as middle schoolers. And that's a long time. That's a lot of missed opportunity. And that makes me lean towards a shorter bond term, but the difference in 9 and 10 years is very small as compared to the difference between passing a bond and not passing a bond. And saying no new tax or no tax increase is a pretty powerful. That's a pretty powerful message. So I know I just argued both sides of that. Yeah. Hey, I called it out. So I think in light of that, I guess what I'll say is I just want to recognize that we are delaying children's chances at getting access to these facilities without some sort of creative programming to figure out how to get middle schoolers over to that facility from here. We're delaying those chances, and that is a trade-off we're making in order to ensure we can say something like no increased taxes, and let's pass this bond and let's build this facility and let's do something to move the district forward. I think that's what I would go for. And now that I've thought about it, I'd probably push for a 9 or a 10-year term.
Are we supposed to talk in this or no?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I think you guys are on the right track for sure, but, and one thing I just thought of, like, I know the difference is minute, but between 9 and 10, but also if you can keep that bond rate, I hate to say as high as possible, when we do the bond in 10 years, if it slips and you go, hey, great, we got our facility, we got our bond rate down to $1.25. Well, in 10 years, we're gonna be right back in that situation where we're stuck at $1.25.
Yeah.
Where if we can go 9 years instead of 10 and be a little bit higher and still pass. I mean, it's probably gonna make a fraction of a difference, but if it does drop, in 10 years or 8 years, 9 years, whenever we redo that bond, we're gonna be stuck there, so don't lose any ground, because it's gonna be hard to get any back.
And if I, that's about, right, like, because if you think the assessed value, right, because the assessed value has gone up in those 10 years, right, that we went from $1.44 to $1, and, it's dropped to 20 cents a piece, right? So I totally understand and appreciate what you're saying.
The only slight, I agree with that with one additional reminder. If we don't pass the bond, then we are at zero.
That's kind of my thought, and I can talk both sides of it as well, but I feel like if we put it out there, we heard you, thank you. Here it is at no increase. And it doesn't pass. Then we've done everything, you know what I mean? We didn't try and eke out to hold more sense. It truly is exactly what we heard. We don't mind.
I don't know if Paula has a thought. She's been in this business a long time.
I do have I'm just, because we had said through the whole bond process, and I brought this up in the CBAC, we hung our hat on the $1.39. That's what the rate was when we were analyzing all of this. Yeah, we're in our final payment. It is gonna drop, just like your mortgage would drop. I mean, it's the same thing. So for me, if we're saying the entire last bond was $1.39, I think the 9-year to $1.36, there isn't an increase. It's actually a reduction. Yes, I personally would say 6 years, let's get this done. Let's go for the next 6 years and get an awesome grant. That would be my thought process, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I really don't. I think it's creeping too close to that $2. It's like $2 is like a hard no. I'm like, we have to recognize that. So my thought would be do the 9-year, $1.36. I mean, initially I was thinking 8 years, $1.52 is a little bit, but like Tim said, do we want to take the win? I think we want to take the win. That's just my 2 cents. I personally would drop it down to $1.23 because the next, we know in 9-10 years what things are going to cost. 20 years ago, when we tried to do this, it was $12 million to build a brand new school. And we can't even come close to that now.
Well, look at the Weston High School edition, which became, it was my project, right? Look what it's done since we completed.
Yes, yes. Nothing's going down. Everything's going up. But that's my 2 cents. It was very disappointing how poorly budget failed, but that was disappointing.
I guess, Mr. Chair, here in the discussion, I'm supportive of the program as presented, the Career Technical Education Facility, and I would be supportive of the 9-year term.
Others?
I agree.
Well,
What I can do for the board is work with Cassie to develop wording at the 9-year, $1.36. That's at the average rate, and wording of no increase. And the board could weigh that wording in February. I can even get that out to the board ahead of time. The reason I think, in my opinion, but I will do what you would like. When I sat down with Klaus Hona to get his input, he was on the CBAC but wasn't able to attend the meeting in January. He brought his tax statement and it took us 2 seconds to figure out that the bond rate on his November tax statement is $1.20. Period, end of discussion. So we're kind of caught in 2 spots. One, we were saying $1.30, which is the bond rate on your 2024 tax statement. We were saying that. So now we're going to say, well, it really wasn't that. But also, if anybody pulls out their current tax statement, it is $1.24. So we want mostly to be 100% transparent and not trying to look like you're not being completely honest about the tax rate. So with your direction, I could work on wording under both scenarios, and then the board could look at that before making a decision, unless you'd like me to do something different.
I'm good with that. Let's move in that direction to get us going. The other thing I'd like to look at is different language from CTE. So the science and careers building, science and
Science, careers, and trades,
trades.
using the word trades,
Some,
I think talked about that.
yeah.
Don't say flagship.
Flagship CT building. Spicy to me.
This is what happens when your feet close. Yeah, you get too much spicy in the salsa today.
Yeah, cause I think we also struggle with that communication talking point. I think we heard that. But CTE didn't bring.
Thank you for the discussion.
Yeah, anything else from the board on that topic? Any last points for discussion?
Thank you, Ms. Specchio and team for pulling all this together. Thanks to our volunteers for accountability. Discussion, support, soundboard.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time and the effort all the members of the CBAC put into this and the thoughtful conversation, the wrestling with the issues and the like open, honest and transparent feedback for us to consider. It's been really helpful. So thank you for your time. Yeah, really appreciate it. All right, well, move on to 4.6.4, the superintendent evaluation.
So the board, it's time to look at the superintendent evaluation and schedule some dates. I think the board typically meets to discuss the evaluation, and then we tend to schedule the evaluation, I believe, in an executive session during the February meeting. And we liked that timeline for the superintendent evaluation. So I'll turn that over to Tim.
Again, so I propose that we do as we have in all of my years on the board now, which we fill out the same form, come together. As chair, I will consolidate feedback and walk through it during executive session. What are some good dates in, I believe we've taken what, an hour in the past, about an hour?
Are we doing it in person or on Zoom?
Yeah, I'd love to do it in person if we could make it happen, because it'd be a lot easier and straightforward to provide quick feedback. Is that amenable to folks? Well, our February meeting is on the 9th.
We're trying to deliver it to Ms. Beshie on the night.
We delivering it in February or do we deliver it in March?
We delivered it last year in February. We've been inching that timeline back just a little bit.
I'd done in May, and I think we tried to pull it in.
Yeah, that's going to stuck in 2020. Come on. What does the last week of January look like for folks?
In the evening.
That would be my thought, unless we all want to get up at 5 and I've got a 6 a.m. meeting.
I'm up at 5 every day anyway.
All right, so evenings, 26, 27, 28, 29.
Yeah.
Not 26, but other than that.
Tuesday the 27th.
Yeah, the 28th is the Pioneer Club Time Card Derby, so I can't schedule over that.
So the 27th, sounds early,
January 27th,
like 5:30.
we had, can you? Okay. All right,
Can you make 5:30? Yeah. Just.
5:30 at the elementary school. Is that working for, I guess we should ask for our board secretary.
yeah,
Our board secretaries.
yeah, Laura.
Trying
all
to
on
think of a
this.
name for us.
Dynamic duo.
I was gonna say the DSs, right, with the board secretaries.
Brandon Shirley.
Prefer to Shirley, which
Yes.
which?
Yeah.
Definitely,
Yes, that'll work.
No, wait a minute.
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Sorry, we digress.
January 27th, 5:30 PM, is that works?
Yeah.
Right, and then I will dredge up the document and send it out ahead of time, and then we look at it. Yeah, great. And ideally, we would all come prepared, and I will.
ideally, definitely come prepared, you guys.
That's why it's in an hour.
Yeah.
It's because everyone's.
And I'll touch base with Natalie to make sure she is. There. Anything else on superintendent evaluation?
Thanks for your leadership on this.
All right, 4.605, January and February community engagement calendar.
I just printed the top sheet off for you on the blue piece of paper, just reminding you of upcoming dates. We have our elementary coffee hour on Wednesday, January 21st at 7:45 at the elementary school. And then our second thought exchange in the evening is Tuesday, February 17th. Districts is the 20th, is that right? Head of districts, we're really shooting for that at 6:30 here at Weston. And I believe we had said we would keep the topics the same, lifelong learning, testing, and facilities conversation. And then in March, we have our last event, which is a coffee hour here at Weston. Still haven't fixed that to say 7:45. Write it down every time. So coffee hours are 7:45, thought exchanges are 6:30 PM. Just reminders about that.
Great, well, I'll get all three of those.
Move on for the February.
The thought exchange.
Yeah.
Boom. There's, make the thought exchange, I will be there. Great. Thanks. Excellent. Anything else on community engagement? All right, let's move on to 4.6.6, key communicators.
So related to that, I provided you a list of our current key communicators on one side, and there were some previous recommendations on the back. And what I would ask is that the board just review that on your own time. And all of the current key communicators I invite to the events, they all have remained active and have not asked to be removed or said they can't fulfill their role as key communicator. If you know somebody on the back that you think would be a good key communicator, I would encourage the board to reach out to those people and ask them if they would like to do that. And again, the main function of a key communicator is that they will get a personal invitation to the thought exchanges, and when we need to reach out for feedback, they are people we reach out to. It's really a pretty easy job. And if you have ideas of people, you can email me or call me with some thoughts and we could talk about that. I think it is beneficial for board members to reach out to people, but I am happy to reach out to people as well. If there's somebody you think would be good, but you don't have a personal relationship with them and would prefer that I reach out, I'm happy to do that. But I also think it's good for the board to reach out to members of the community and invite them to be key communicators. So that's just for your information. We talked last month about reviewing that list and maybe updating and maybe adding some names. So I'll just leave that with you and ask that you communicate directly with me about key communicators, additions, recommendations, and who's going to reach out.
Great. Any discussion? All right, we move to item number 5. Personnel.
We have an updated personnel sheet. So classified hire for information only, Tegan Jackson, paraprofessional here at the middle school. Extra duty hire, Gerald Stallings, high school varsity baseball coach. Extra duty resignation, Morgan Dunlap, high school varsity football coach. And extra duty volunteer, information only, Travis Johnston, middle school wrestling.
A motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the hiring of Gerald Stallings as high school varsity baseball coach and accept the resignation of Morgan Dunlap, high school varsity.
Thanks, Scott, have a second?
Second.
Kristen? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you to those who are signing up for coaching positions. Really appreciate that. Moving on to action item 6.1 surplus.
So as Tom referenced, we have two vehicles for surplus, a 1999 Chevy minibus, 14 passenger, has 201,000 miles on it, and a 2001 International diesel bus, 60 passengers with more than 225,000 miles on it. And Tom has left. If you have questions, Paula probably can answer better than I can.
So motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to declare the 99 Chevy minibus, the 01 International bus as certified.
Second?
Yes.
All right, discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to Visa card. Transportation.
So, each administrator, each building has its own assigned Visa card as well as some for athletics. And turns out our transportation supervisor makes a lot of purchases, and it would be very convenient if he were assigned his own Visa card specifically for transportation, in the amount of $2,500 credit, and he would be the signer of that. It would streamline some paperwork and procedures for Tom and for our business manager.
Sense to me. Good motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Visa card for transportation in the amount of 2,500. Signers and stops.
Marty, have a second?
Second, Scott.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 6.3, resignation of school board member Rebecca Wall.
You have Rebecca's letter of resignation in your package. She is moving out of the district that she represents, and therefore she has to resign from the board. And then with that, the board will need to discuss the procedure for filling that position in an interim capacity.
Start with accepting the resignation, and then we can move to discussion about procedure. If that works for everybody. We have a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the resignation of Rebecca Bond as board member for zone 4.
Thank you, Marty. Have a second?
Second, Scott.
Scott, all in favor? Or sorry, discussion first. Any discussion? It doesn't sound like we have a choice.
No, but thank you to Ms. Bond for her service and support for the district and the kids of Athena-Weston.
Second. All in favor of accepting the resignation?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So looking at our school board policies, as I read it, I believe we will need to appoint a board member into this position. This is zone 4, if I remember right. And before we can appoint, we have to advertise position for a period of at least 20. No, it's for a 20-day period. So we have to do it exactly 20 days and no more than less. And then we can appoint. If, ideally that person is from that zone, if an eligible zone resident cannot be found, we can appoint one the eligible residents from the district. So ideally, we would get this position appointed at the next board meeting, since we'll have been able to meet the 20-day notice for posting. What I would suggest is perhaps we can circulate some names to me, if you would. If you have a recommendation, send them my way, and I'm happy to reach out to these people. If you could provide contact info, that would be great as well. And then we can, I guess my question to you all is, have we appointed I guess Paul was an appointed board member at one point.
Yeah.
How did that, and how did the process work for choosing an appropriate person? Sorry, appointing an eligible resident.
Well, mine was, same thing, open up for a period of time, and I believe did we fill something out or write a letter to the district?
They wrote a letter.
If we wrote a letter, just saying who we are, who we were, and why we want to be on the school board. And then that board there was two of us that sent a letter and had us come and discuss in front of the board, which I personally did not feel was necessary at the time, but we sure could do that. That's how it was for me. We submitted a letter, we both came, or basically asked us why we wanted to be on the school board. Each gave a short answer, and then the board voted on between the two.
Right then and there.
Right then and there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and there was some yays and some nays, maybe. So.
You were the one. But I kind of agree with that. I think having someone submit, a letter of interest and sort of introducing themselves, I don't know that it. I don't know if it makes sense to have them come forward.
But if there's more than one.
So I believe it's a requirement, if you have more than one applicant for the same position, you're required to do it, you're required to do it in public. So,
Just to make it.
that doesn't mean.
And where do those rules go?
Well, I know
Because
that,
they're not in our board policy.
so I'll just say, that's been the case for OSBA, and then I've attended multiple other regional board meetings. I'll use Hermiston as an example. On Hermiston, I did sit in where they had 3 applicants for a singular position. And it was very heated, but, you know, I attended a Morrow County meeting, so I think it was probably carried in or SSM that it is already good one. OSBA may reference it in their board policies as well. But I know that if you have more than one, you do have to conduct it in an open.
We are sort of required to appoint from the people that apply, correct? Correct.
And then I'll continue to use the lens that I've done it through in the sense that if you don't have anybody, let's just use, this is Weston Zone 4. If you don't get any applicants from Weston Zone 4, you have to close it and then you can reopen it. If there's somebody who still lives in the district but is outside of that, then that can apply.
The same sort of process, 20 days, everybody.
And it's through the end of what would be your current term, so June 22nd.
No, because we're in the. Thought it was because we were in an election year. Will serve until June 30th following the next election, at which time the individual elected in May of that year will fill the remaining portion of the expired term or serve a full 4-year term.
So you're saying that we would have to happen, that position would be on the ballot this May.
I think it aligns with the position. I think it aligns with, maybe this is where we can digress across a piece of OSBA, but I think it aligns with Rebecca's current term expires June of 26. Therefore, the candidate will complete the term of Rebecca's, and then at that point in time, if they want to continue, they can apply for it and then go up for election when it comes.
That's what I thought, but
That's
when
how
you read it, it's not clear. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say we need to update these policies because they aren't. Because I read it that they will serve until June 30th following the next election, why the election is in quotes, I don't know. At which time the individual elected in May of that year will fill the remaining portion of an expired term. Because there's an election
That
every
clearly
May.
sounds like they're saying.
Yeah, that's.
But the school boards, the May is only like.
Every 2 years.
Yeah, every odd year. Maybe we just need to verify.
Hold on a second here. So wouldn't that, since our elections are only at odd years, wouldn't that, in fact, do the same thing, we appoint somebody, they wouldn't really actually be on until next year.
Well, they would fulfill the interim appointment created by the
Through the
vacancy. So theoretically, whomever he or she is could fulfill the position through Rebecca's.
Right.
term.
May of
And then they would
2027.
need to run again.
Right. Yeah.
You know if it's on OSBA website or Bonnie?
I would probably just pay Spencer.
Should probably get quotes in the election year removed. Seems
I want to say Hermiston's is the one that I most recently sat in on, and Hermiston didn't meet your candidates. I think they actually had, now that I'm talking, I think they had 2 vacancies and 3 applicants. Because they really needed to make it super exciting for the board to navigate. And I remember it was fairly contentious.
I believe the other reason the person needs to be there at that board meeting is because they will be sworn and seated immediately.
So that's not what we did when I was,
Yeah, you had fun one.
I waited till the next month.
Yeah.
Was sworn at that one.
Because if we have 2 applicants for the same position, you do interview them both at the time, and then the board is required to make a motion. Even with the fifth present.
Yeah. And it says they will be immediately
Come on in.
sworn and seated. Yeah. All right. So I guess I'll work with Ann and we'll double check the term and whatnot. If there's someone you'd like me to reach out to, I'm happy to see if they're willing to submit a letter of interest. If you'd prefer to reach out directly yourself, please feel free to do so. And I will, when we have the answer, I will send that out via email to the board. We have a process down.
Would you like us to advertise this like on our website and Facebook and the post office, just like we advertise everything?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
I think it should be posted just like a notice of
perfect.
meeting. And then I guess we will see if we can't, somebody seated in February. Any other thoughts? I think we need to talk about there.
Thank you again, Rebecca.
Yeah. All right, moving on to policy. As a reminder, these are all second readings, which means we also are adopting them tonight. So I'll turn over to you, Ann. Can we go through 6.4 policy DJC bidding requirements?
So, this one, there are a lot of pages in your packet. We talked about that last month, mainly from an AR that was recommended for deletion. And so I just wanted the board to look at that to be sure we weren't missing anything, but the board does not need to approve ARs. So unless there are questions from reviewing those ARs, I will go ahead and adopt the ARs that OSBA recommends that go along with these policies. So with DJC, this is bidding requirements. The update reflects some new amounts for the procurement levels passed in House Bill 1047 in 2023 and went to effect January 1, 2024. So this aligns us with current law. In addition, the AR that you have has been updated to reflect current laws and regulations. And then there were some recommendations for deletions. The policy and AR also combine some older policies together, and you can see that in your outline. There's the proposed DJC, the proposed AR, your current DJC, and then recommended for deletion DJCA and DJCA-AR, which are now included in the policy.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve CPJC vision requirements as presented.
Thanks, Scott. Kristen, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 6.5, policy JFE, pregnant and or parenting students.
And again, a lot of these we're doing now, we had sort of paused some of our board policy updates because of the confusion around Title IX law that has occurred in the last year. So we are playing a little bit of catch up. We wanted to let things settle down at the federal level before we were in a cycle of adopting and then having to rescind and adopt older versions. And so we just sort of hit pause for a little bit. So JFE is one that was impacted by changes to Title IX rules. OSBA recommended that we revert to a 2021 version of JFE. However, when I went to review that, our most current policy was from 2015. So this is the 2021 version, which does update some legal references, but is in alignment with federal Title IX policy as it stands today. So you have the proposed JFE that is from 2021, and it does have a little bit of vocabulary change around developed guidelines instead of AR administrative rules and some legal references. And then just for your information, we have an AR, which would now be a guideline that we could keep with the board policy. That's really just a document for if we have a pregnant or parenting team, how we would write a support plan for that stuff.
The motion,
Mr. Chair, I move to approve policy JFE, pregnant and or parenting students as presented.
thanks, Scott. Second. Thanks, Marty. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 6.6, policy EBDA, student health services.
So this is a highly recommended policy from OSBA, and it includes language that required schools to develop a written prevention-oriented health services plan for all students. We do have those in place, but the update to this policy mentions that requirement. So it would be a good update to the board policy. In addition, we don't have an EBBA that addresses this. Ours was a first aid policy that got rescinded and folded into another health policy that we've already approved. So this would sort of replace that as well, but it's entirely different language.
All right, have a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve policy EBBA, student health services as presented.
Thanks, Scott. So second.
Second.
Thanks, Kristen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 6.7, policy EBCB, emergency procedure drills and instruction.
So in 2023, the legislature required districts to adopt policy language about using electronic communication to notify parents, guardians, and employees within 24 hours of a safety threat action that was not a drill. We did approve policy around that, but this update includes that language in our emergency procedures and drills instruction policy. And you can see some of my recommended language in here. Primarily, we're keeping 2 drills on earthquakes each year versus 3, and we are not including tsunami drills. We have a tsunami problem here. I'm moving. So there's no need for that, and that is optional language in the policy. You can see our current one attached. Just compare.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the policy EBCB, emergency procedure drills and instruction as presented.
Ms. Scott, second,
I second.
any discussion?
Appreciate your thought around, pragmatic, and what is applicable here and what is not. So thank you for that.
Very much.
We are safe here in Weston, on the Sonoma.
We're
Up here in this hill. We are not so much safe from earthquakes in Weston, in a 100-year-old.
All in favor of adoption?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Policy GBEB, communicable diseases in schools.
So this update also addresses the written prevention-oriented health services plan for all students, but it also combines two policies. One was geared towards staff, one was geared towards students. This one just addresses communicable diseases in schools rather than with students and with staff. So it actually combines two policies together. We will develop an AR for this policy. I provided a sample. We will pretty much follow that sample. And then there are some policies that then get deleted once we adopt this policy. Again, you can kind of see my recommended language notes, strikeouts in here.
Motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the policy GBEB, communicable diseases in schools as presented.
Scott, do I have a second?
Yes, I second.
Good morning. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 6.9, policy JECB-AR, class size caps for non-resident students, transfer, lottery process, and inter-district transfer of resident students. This is just a review.
Yes, so we are required to review our class cap sizes because we participate in the inter-district transfer process. We need to review that annually. So our current administrative regulation in grades K through 2, we will cap for inter-district transfers if we have 50 students per grade level. Grades 3 through 5 at 56 students per grade level, but if we have blended classrooms, we might take that into consideration. Grades 6 through 8, we cap at 60 students per grade level unless staffing allows for 4 subject classes to not exceed 25 students per class. We added that last year because we had a large group of right about 60 go through the middle school, but we had them in 3 sections. And so their class sizes were actually smaller than classes with fewer than 60 students in it. And then in 9 through 12, class size limits will be established based on course capacity. And again, that's because not all ninth graders take the same classes. And so unless we are, really looking at 35 students in an English class, we're much more flexible at times. And then there's a lottery process outlined if people are on the waiting list.
Well, I guess looking at this, do we need to approve this, Sam?
Trying to remember what we've done.
We approved it last.
I think we do. I think this is one of those rare ones, sort of like the agreement with the tribe that we did have. Approved.
Well, can I make one change?
Well, I changed the spelling error that was in there for you. So,
You got rid of the and, made it.
yes, I think.
It's not, well,
Yep,
cool. That was it.
that was it.
Have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the policy JECB-AR, class size caps for non-resident student transfer, lottery process, and inter-district transfer resident students, with the notable comment that you made as presented.
Scott, do I have a second?
I second.
Marty, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. 6.10, overnight trips.
We have one overnight trip for approval. It is FFA to the FFA State Convention, March 19th through 22nd in Redmond.
A motion.
Chair, move to approve the state convention, by state convention in Redmond.
Marty,
Second, Scott.
Scott, thank you for the second. Any discussion?
I know it's matters. The form says the 19th to the 22nd of the motion. What said, or the, yeah. The board note says the 19th to the 20th. That matters.
Is it school days missed is the 19th and 20th, so are they actually there through the weekend?
Yes.
Oh, so that's the
So-
difference. So they travel the 19th through the 22nd, but they only miss two school days.
Your motion was through this.
Through the 22nd. Yeah.
Did I answer this question?
Yeah.
So we have a motion to approve the trip from the 19th through the 22nd. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Review of distributions. Motion.
I'm sure I moved to approve distributions. That's presented.
We have a second. Kristen. Any discussion?
This would be a good time to test them.
Yeah.
Whoa. Where's that big book down there? Western Bus Tales.
Yeah. Gee, what could that be?
You gotta find something obscure that you gotta dig around in.
That's true. Laura's only been focused on red. It was expensive, but not a lot.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Board of Education. Start with 12.
Nothing for me tonight.
Kristen.
I appreciate the appreciation, particularly because I always appreciate the opportunity to see some of the fun work that's happening in the district. So thank you for that. And also in appreciation for Rebecca, I will greatly miss working with her and her eye toward equity. And I think she added a lot to our board, and so I'm appreciative of her service.
So, thank you. Yes, in addition to those things, I want to say, thank you, Mr. Griggs, for being here and the work with the bagpipes. I think that, the positive press around the district is always good, but the engagement of the kids, around that piece and Mr. Gow's work with, bringing back the bagpipes is awesome. And particularly with those younger kids, and that's great. And I love the engagement that wrestling has brought, and then the birth kids of the junior high and the high school. And how it doesn't seem to be taking away from existing sports. It's bringing more kids in, which was the goal. So good job.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you again to our floral and foods kiddos, for obviously the flowers, but also the snacks. I appreciate that. Thank you to our CBAC members, those that are present tonight, as well as those continue to be supportive and engaged with the district, now kind of guide and influence our decision-making process. And then finally, I want to say thank you to my board colleagues, as a token of appreciation. I'm always appreciative of our honest discussion, our ability to kind of come together to support students, but also have our differences of opinion, but also come together to support students in the districts. Thank you to my peers.
Thank you all. Yeah, I would echo all of those sentiments. Anything we can do to get kids excited about learning and doing different things is wonderful. So thank you for the hard work on 3D printing and bagpipes, bringing all that together. It's really cool to see cross-pollination across disciplines. I think that's a really important aspect that can often be missed in siloed education. I very much appreciate seeing the students and getting to taste their goods, and I very much appreciate the flowers and arrangement. That's really cool. I, like you said, Scott, appreciate our board, appreciate the conversations we have and the ability to get to some sort of consensus and move forward on behalf of the district. Very appreciative for that. Well, and I also am very sad to see Rebecca go. I was very excited to have her as an addition to our board, and I think she's provided a unique viewpoint that we didn't have previously, so I hope we can find a board member that can help fill that role. And help us make connections in the Weston area. That is an area where I think we need some improvement. And then I would like to say thank you to Anne for continuing to drive the process forward with the CBAC and getting us to an actual proposal that we can move forward with for the coming election. I hope that we can convince the voters that we need to do something, and that supporting our schools is the right thing to do. Thank you to the CBAC members for being here, and to all those that participated. That will wrap it up and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.